So far, haven't got any resistance, and I've been making a point of having wine professional coming to my tasting as well, which
Yeah.
was a big challenge for me because I was like, oh, I've been mocked in the past. And, like a lot of
Mm.
people are just rigid and they're happy with the format that has been given with the educational system, but not everyone works that way. And so I was definitely scared to be criticized and be mocked showcasing my tasting. But actually, I've had some beautiful testimony where I've had a colleague of mine who's been working in the wine industry for more than 30 years. And I invited him to my tasting. And he said to me, he's like, thank you. Like, you made me fall in love with wine again.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
was just like, I kind of lost my way into the industry, just keep on doing the same old, and
Mm.
without finding any kind of novelty or refreshing reminder that
Mm.
wine means something else.
Bonjour and welcome to We Taste Wine Differently, the podcast designed to empower you, wine professionals, and help you truly connect with today's wine consumers through the power of sensory experiences. Each week, we will explore practical, science-backed methods and actionable insights rooted in sensory and consumer science to transform how you taste, talk about, and present wine, ultimately enhancing the tasting room experience and building long-term relationships with your consumers. Are you ready to taste wine differently and adapt to today's changing dynamics? Let's dive in. Welcome to today's episode of We Taste Wine Differently. I'm your host, Isabelle Lesschaeve, wine sensory scientist, educator, and tasting coach. I'm delighted to welcome Amandine Fournier to the show. Ama is the founder of Vinestasia, and I'm really excited to explore her approach to tasting wine differently. But first, let me say a few words about Ama. Playful, present, and unapologetically French, Ama is far more than a wine expert. Straight out of Bordeaux, the essence of wine runs through her veins, just as she ran through the vineyards as a child. Her humanistic approach reimagines wine as a portal, and each sip as a sensory journey. We met on LinkedIn and quickly discovered a shared interest to make wine more approachable through sensory experiences. But we are coming from different horizons. So I'm really excited to learn more about your approach, Ama. You share your philosophy through interactive workshops, welcoming guests into a world of Vinesthesia, a layering of senses as we reconnect with ourselves and the moment, glass in hand. So I can't wait to learn more about your world of Vinestasia, and welcome to the show, Ama.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited. Thank you for having me.
A pleasure. I'm really fond about your work, so I want to dig a little bit more. So let's start with the
Great.
origin of Vinestasia and how you came up with this concept, this approach, despite growing up into a very traditional wine region, Bordeaux. So I assume you went through maybe some traditional wine education, and I'm really curious about your origin story for Vinestasia.
Look, my origin story definitely started, I will say, over 20 years ago. So, as you say, I come from Bordeaux, or the countryside. I come from Saint-Emilion. So, very important platform in the wine industry. Both of my grandfather used to make wine when I was a kid. So, I was right away
Mm.
immersed in this environment. When I was a kid, like as soon as I could crawl, I was with my family in the vineyard. So I was really immersed with this community, and everyone loved being there. That connection that we had, the play that we invite into the vineyard as well as the seriousness when we are making wine and the process of like waiting and being patient. My first paid job was at 12 years old during school holiday. I was working at the winery. So I was really immersed to that. But even having the best time with my family and friends in the wineries, that's not where I fell in love. During my education years, I was trying to wonder what I wanted to do in my life, and I couldn't find any answer. So I went into a thing where I tried different industry just to see what fits the best to me. And one of them was in hospitality. So I work in a restaurant, but I found myself very quickly attracted by everything that is bar, the alchemy, playing with all the mixology and everything. And I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And one day during, it was during an expo actually, and the restaurant where I was working at hosted a wine tasting. So I was the new addition of the team and the youngest one, which at the time I was really wondering what on earth I was doing that, because I clearly find zero inspiration in the mix of saliva and wine. But it's that moment where things just went like aha to me. While I was wandering and picking up the wine from all the spittoon, the wine expert was on the other side of the room and pick up a black wine glass, shooting out to the audience. Can you tell me the color of a wine without saying it? And all the attention at this moment, everything went all silent. And even me, I was like, what do you mean? And this is where it all started, where I was like, I want to know more about it. Like, clearly there is something more than what I've heard or what I've experienced. So I want to know more about it. And that was my first like step into, okay, I want to know more about wine. I'm going to dive into this question. Let's go.
All right. So that was really the pivotal moment, these black glasses. And I know as a sensory scientist, we use black glasses all the time. And when you present to wine experts, usually they are very uncomfortable because they learn to see the wine first. That's the basic of wine quality judging, is appearance first. So I'm curious, how just these black glasses, the key question, can you guess the color of the wine just by smelling and tasting, I assume? So what was the next step? This pivotal moment is just like incredible.
Well, I was very lucky, actually. The wine expert on that day was actually a professor. So I went to have a chat with him, and he's like, look, I actually like teach at a school in Bordeaux. I'm going to give you my card. Let's catch up for a coffee and see and take you through the process. So I had to go and do an interview with the school, and I went through a selection because there were limited seats available at the school. And I think I got it, like, I think from my enthusiasm, I got the place. And the rest, I've been studying. I went through a course of 3 years studying, going all over France as well, traveling as well as I was studying and working at the same time. So I got a better understanding of the vineyard all over France and a better understanding of what I want to do and why wine was so important to me at the time now.
Yeah, well, such a dream career path for so many wine scholars to travel across France. So,
absolutely.
So you learn all about wine, you discover the making of it, the importance of the vineyards, but then how did you make the leap to the senses, and the importance of the senses in our appreciation of wine?
I think that was definitely right away from what I was studying. So for sure, I had this moment where I had to use my mind, but there was something in me when I was tasting the wine, like the wine was taking me to some places. I was remembering like old memories that were connected to some smell, or sometimes like I had a vision, like I just close my eyes, connect with the wine and be focused on the present moment. And sometimes some vision were appearing. Sometimes I had a flash from a movie coming up, or maybe a painting, or just a scenery that I was imagining in my head. And from this, I was like, oh, like I actually quite like the way wine come to me and all those images come up. And so at some point, I was like, oh, yeah, just do it, just share your vision, just share what you see, which I've done. And I've done it in front of my peers and some other students in the classroom. And the way I was describing the wine, they all laugh at me. And on this, I was like, all right, so I guess this is not the time and the place to speak openly about what I feel. It's a more rigid way that you need to focus like what the textbook are saying, and you need to describe in a way that the textbook are saying, and there is maybe no more room for anything else. And on this, I got like kind of a bit shut down. I was like, all right, I'm gonna keep that for myself for now and just focus on that plastic like textbook frame, which I've done for a certain time, like for most of my career actually, until I will say 2-3 years ago, I had a kind of sparkle in my stomach where I felt like I was too comfortable into my environment. So I quit my job and I quit my job and I jumped into another role of sommelier. So it's not like I went into something completely different, but the environment itself, I just changed the people I was working with. And step by step, I was like, okay, I'm not going to go full time. I'm going to go part time. So I have more time to understand and find out what it means and what I can contribute within this industry. Because at the end of the day, just replicating the same thing all over again clearly is not me. And I'm fading step by step. So I need to connect really to that essence of wine, the things that sparkle the joy and the magic in me, and connect with that and share it to the world.
Wow. That's a great mission and a wonderful statement, to sparkle the joy in yourself and share with others. I love it. So we continue your journey. So now you have a mission on this planet to make wine more approachable, to share a different way of tasting wine. So what are you doing that? Is it how Vinestasia came to birth?
Exactly. Vinestasia came to birth. So when you look at the word Vinestasia, so vin, wine in English, and I took the other part of synesthesia, synesthesia. So when you experience one sense through another. So I combine all together. So when we do wine tasting, we actually get the chance to, for example, taste, but through the test, we don't just test what we have in our mouth. On the back of the palate, we have the retro olfaction. And so it's connecting to the sense of smell as well. When we test and talk about texture and tannin, we're talking about silky feeling or a fine grain. And that will be also connecting with our sense of touch and what we feel from the fingertip. So I actually just like connected the dots together and things that I was like, oh, like we have this intellectual approach about wine, and some people will be romantic as well. I'm very romantic when I speak about wine, but how about that human approach, something that people can resonate with? And this is where I just got the chance to like step in, and I was like, I'm gonna show the world wine from something that they don't need to train for. I mean, you can obviously train for, but something they're born with. They're born with those assets. They have their past, they have their own history, and somehow without realizing it, they've been just like registering some data with everyday life that they can go back to and connect with the world and describe the wine with it.
Yeah, it's very profound what you said, because I realized that in my work as well, people don't realize the assets that they have, the capability, the capacity. I always struggle with those two words, but they're skills. They have the skills. They just,
absolutely,
don't use them. So it's wonderful to see people discovering that, yes, when I taste, I smell. And that's the big aha moment, usually for people when they discover retronasal olfaction. But I'm going maybe too much into the practices and the technicalities. So maybe you have this vision, this mission. You have hosted several workshops since to share your approach. So when people register, what do you promise to them? How do they come interested in the approach? Or did they come like, we're going to do a wine tasting and meet a winemaker? What is really the dynamic and how do they connect with you?
So first, I think when they come in, I think they definitely have this expectation of coming to a wine tasting. And so that is one thing that I cut right away. When people sit down and we start the session, I ask them who have ever been to a wine tasting before. Most of the people have been lifting their hands up. So I'm like, great, this is amazing. Now I want you experiencing and forget about everything, because what I'm going to take you through today is nothing like you've been experiencing before. On this, I'm going to cut out every jargon and the pretense, and I'm going to make it more fun. And so everyone can relax because guess what? There is no wrong answer whatsoever. Everything is very much like true to you. Of course, if you have a Shiraz in front of you and you're thinking it's a Viognier, I'm going to like readjust certain facts, but for everything that you feel like if for you, you are smelling a strawberry, who I am to tell you no, it's not right.
Yeah.
I can guide you through, I can share my point of view, but I'm not based on your understanding of what it smell like and taste like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So except if I have a strawberry in front of me and I can share that to you and you the one be like, no, it definitely smells like a strawberry. Oh no, actually I thought strawberry was smelling different or tasting different. And then you readjust that thing. Otherwise, like it's all based on a personal understanding.
Yeah. You know, I'm very fascinated by the fact that you discovered basically how to conduct a sensory tasting by yourself and through your own experience and the way that you lead the workshops. You just made a comment about bringing what we called physical standard, you know, real strawberry to align the description to make sure that the person, when they said strawberry, that's what they meant. So I'm really fascinated and impressed by your path to realize that. So just note, you don't need to have a PhD in sensory science to conduct sensory tasting. That's really what it is. So in terms of the activities, you started to talk about the beginning of the workshop. So how do you conduct the tasting? You said, well, you know, if they said Shiraz and it's a Viognier, you know, is it a blind tasting? Do they have to guess the varietal wines, or how do you lead them through the discovery of the wines?
So the discovery of the wine doesn't go necessarily through the technicality. Okay. I'm not here to necessarily speak about the winemaking process because there are things that people cannot relate to. It's purely a sensory approach, and how to show, I'm showing people how much they trust the senses, how much the senses tell the truth, and how to see things from different perspectives. So, for example, my very first thing, so I just tell them my origin journey, my origin story, and I come up with a black glass, and I ask them, can you please tell me the color of a wine without saying it? So straight away, obviously, it's one thing, like we take our senses for granted. And so when we have this, where we have a black wine glass, we're like, okay, so where is the answer? How can I find the answer? And I see people smelling and I see the eyes wandering around. And I stop them right away. I'm like, what I'm inviting you to do right now is to close your eyes as well. Clearly, you can't see the answer. So you need to find another way to get to the answer. If you keep your eyes open, you are looking for the answer around you. But this is just visual noise. And it disconnects you to what you have in front of you, which is the answer. So on this, I give them the tools or the directives to get a better understanding of what like the color could be and how they can guess that color. So from this, we go from the sense of smell, and then we go through the sense of taste. And I invite them to close their eyes and be like, so first of all, is there something in particular that come up to you? Maybe it's a color. Maybe you see green. So green will be closely connecting to a white wine for the color perspective. Maybe you see strawberries. So you're like, oh, strawberry is red. So like just very basic and simple things. Because it's red, maybe the wine could be red. Maybe you have that like smoky flavor or spices that come up. So maybe it's more related to a strength of a red wine. When you test the wine, maybe you have something that feels richer with a bit of tannin. So you're like, oh yeah, that's definitely a red wine. So I took them through these things. And what I really love at the moment is showcasing Pinot Gris. Because Pinot Gris is a great variety that everyone is like, Pinot Grigio, you know, just light, cheap and cheerful type of wine. But when you really connect to the history of it and all the variation that is attached to the Pinot Gris, like for example, I showcase a Ramato style, which is a Pinot Gris style made in the northeast of Italy, where the winemakers differentiate themselves to the French, been using the skin of a Pinot Gris, which is such a beautiful variation of colors, going from the yellow to the orange to the green to the pink to the purple. And having this living in contact with the juice, they extracting colors and more aromatic and texture. And from that, like I have tasted some Pinot Gris that tastes like Pinot Noir. Mm-hmm. And when I show at some point, like I go and I do a reveal. So I pour from the black glass and I pour into a clear glass. And I ask them again, now you can see the color of the wine. Can you tell me with assurance the color of the wine? And so they go through and I'm like, okay, now I can see. So clearly it's a rosé. But no, we're on a Pinot Gris. It's a white wine. It's not because it looks like a rosé. And it's just showcasing to people like things are not necessarily what they seem to be.
Yeah. I think it's a beautiful approach also for the people who want to learn about the winemaking differences, etc. It's a wonderful way to learn through the discovery rather than learning everything in the textbook and then trying to recognize the wine in a blind tasting. So kudos to them. That's excellent.
Yeah, I definitely give them some indication and some better understanding in wine without teaching them anything like per se. I'm not here with my textbook and be like, so this is what you need to remember, what you need to learn. No, I'm just showcasing what are the possibilities that are on the market and seeing like, rather than going towards something that is very classic, maybe I need to step out of my comfort zone and try something a bit different. And maybe it will be a Pinot Gris with skin contact. And actually, that would be phenomenal. So, showcasing other possibility rather than what we know.
Yeah. So you said when people come to the workshop, many of them think it's a traditional wine tasting. 2 questions, did they share with you any aha moments, any discovery moments that really was really worth it to come to the workshop? Or did you have also any resistance from some participants? And just curious.
So far, I haven't got any resistance. And I've been making a point of having wine professionals coming to my tasting as well, which was a big, big challenge for me because I was like, oh, I've been mocked in the past. And, like a lot of people are just rigid and they're happy with the format that has been given with the educational system, but not everyone works that way. And so I was definitely scared to be criticized and be mocked, showcasing my tasting. But actually, I've had some beautiful testimony where I've had a colleague of mine who's been working in the wine industry for more than 30 years. And I invited him to my tasting. And he said to me, he's like, thank you. Like, you made me fall in love with wine again. And I was just like, I kind of lost my way into the industry, just keep on doing the same old, and without finding any kind of novelty or refreshing reminder that wine means something else. I've had on my last 2 tastings, I have had a younger woman came in to the tasting, and that was a very first wine tasting.
Okay.
So for me, I was like, all right. So obviously it's very hard because she can't compare. She never had any experience of wine tasting before. When she came up, she's like, you show me something that I was hoping to get, like really a connection, something where I don't have to be educated in order to know that I can actually appreciate wine and I can have a better understanding or a better immersion through it without coming with a back of knowledge. And because my approach is fun, is based on storytelling, so a lot of people share their own story and the way they feel as well. And it's a lot of like immersion and a moment where we get to connect all together, which is what the essence of wine means to me. Like, is really getting the chance to travel through time and space, connecting with old memories, connecting with new memories that we just like creating on the moment with people that are around us and connecting with people.
Yeah, and wine is the perfect vehicle for that, for social interactions. It's been for millennia around us and connecting people and fostering connections. But what you described remind me of an article I just read. It was a BBC feature about the Paris Opera, Opera Garnier. And, opera is also something, a part of the culture that seems intimidating for people, very like you need to be educated. And the director was interviewed and he said, well, this is not what we want. We want people to come and feel and have emotions. And really, it's not about looking at the booklet before and understanding the story. If you feel the story, you don't need to know the story in advance. And I said, well, that reminds me a lot about wine. You really need to feel that connection. And we had a conversation to prepare this podcast, Amma, and I think you said something to the essence that you encourage participants to really see what is the message of the winemaker in the bottle. And I'm just wondering, how do you do that? How do people find the message, or how do they interpret this request?
Well, first of all, I don't think you'll be able to connect with the message in the bottle, in every single bottle.
Yeah.
It just depends emotionally if you connect with the wine and if the wine makes you feel a certain way. That's where you get to connect with the message in the bottle. Obviously, when I look at a winemaker, for me, a winemaker is a storyteller, is an author. Rather than using a pen and a paper to write a story, he will use the grape variety and what the year has been providing. He has a vision. He knows what the plot is going to produce with this understanding, and therefore with the year that has been happening, trying to harvest the best quality fruit and write a story through that. So he has his own message to give to the people. But at the same time, like, you have your own message. So when you connect with a certain smell or a certain taste or texture, because this will probably make you think of something else, like a memory that has been lost in time. This memory holds emotion, which holds maybe a message for you to reconnect with this time and make you feel something. And like, you're bringing a memory back to life with a glass of wine. I mean, to me, it's a magic potion. And this message were meant for you at that time.
Yeah.
And this is what is quite important for me.
And I think the approach or the journey you take people through is really about discovering the importance of being mindful when you smell and taste a glass of wine, because otherwise you miss all those messages.
That's very right.
If somebody is talking about the great story of the winemaking and the wineries, and then you listen to the people, you don't pay attention to the wine, but really to feel that connection and to really be in tune with your senses and experience, you need silence, you need to close your eyes, and you're right on. That's wonderful.
Yeah, connecting with yourself. Look, it's the same thing when you pick a book or when you listen to music or you watch a movie. You will have something at some point, a sentence, like you feel something where it's like a call of action.
Yeah.
And one gives you exactly the same thing. And this is your message at the time. Like, it's special for you, and that message was in the bottle. It doesn't mean that you will again like find that in every single bottle. I don't. It's not often that I get, like, especially working in a restaurant, I open bottles, like dozen and dozen and dozen of bottles of wine every day. So for me, when I get, like, it's always the same thing. I open the bottle, I pour a taste in my glass, I close my eyes for a second, and I see clearly, like, when a smile comes up to my face, I'm like,
yeah. Excellent. Yeah. And we talk a lot about emotions, and, emotions drives people behavior, and definitely the aromatics of the wines are connected to the deep center of emotion. So the more people can remember, generate memories, or the fact that they create these new memories with you will certainly, they will remember that experience for a long time. And if you are representing a winery, definitely they will remember the wines and the brand. So this emotional connection is so important. So you went through hospitality training, and your peers were not very open to tasting wine differently. So now, with this experience that you have under your belt, how do you see this traditional training for wine hospitality professional, and your approach, which is more geared towards consumers, being more focused on the sensory experience of the consumers. Is there a place for these two approaches to, at some point, not merge, but find some commonalities? And I'm just curious about your point of view on that.
So for me, one can't be dissociated to the other. It's very important. Wine, like you have the educational system, which is the mind, and then you have the sensory approach, which is the body. I don't want to cut one from the other. And I think both of them should be merging. Both of them have one common interest, wine.
Yeah.
But the importance is that you can't just focus on the mind and ask the mind to understand everything that the body feels without, like, you can't, like, both of them has to work together. For me, when I went through the scholarship, I got to learn about history. I got to learn about geography. I got to learn about everything that is cultural, with music, with food, where it's been made and why it's been made that way. Like, there were so much things that I got the chance to learn, that with my textbook, I also got the chance to travel.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting on my chair comfortably home. So this is quite important, and it will give you so much information that provide understanding, that, like, the body will give you signal, but if you don't have that understanding through the mind and through all the technicality, maybe you may miss some point. It's not necessary to have all the educational system. You can enjoy wine as it is. You don't need to have a degree for it. No. If you want to dive further into this element, go ahead. It could be very confusing, and it can be very mind-opening. It has both, but I don't think I want to dissociate one from another. I think the scholar system need to have a more, like, holistic, a more human approach, rather than being intellectual all the time, because we're missing the point. Like, I have that thing, sometimes I really don't like speaking with sommelier, because they just speak about the wine they've been selling, the wine they've been drinking, all their life is wine, where I'm like, hang on a second, there is so much more. And, like, you can connect wine with opera and music, like the way the emotion comes through you when you listen to some music. Wine will provide you the same thing, but it's not in the textbook that you will learn that. It's by experiencing it yourself on the moment.
Yeah, I always say to my clients, I mean, I think the wine education starts on the wrong side of the equation. We should start by helping people discover wine through their senses. And then, if, as you just said, if they want to get more education to understand, the strawberry note, where does it come from? Is it the varietal or is it the winemaking? Then they can go further and then travel through the textbook, or if they are lucky to travel to the wine regions. I totally agree. Yeah. So you have conducted these workshops for several years right now?
Right now, it's been about a year and a half.
A year and a half. And do you envision, like, a next step? How do you see Vinestasia growing and developing and maybe exploring other dimensions?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I want to take wine outside of the things that we know. I want to take it outside of the winery, outside of the restaurant, outside of the wine bar or a cellar. Yeah. I want to take it to some places like art gallery. Wine for me is art. And so sometimes when we wander around the art gallery, some piece of art will just connect and align with the wine. And so I want to take that to, like, a fashion show, because when you get to experience the different textile, you will understand that you can match the feeling from your fingertip to the wine and the texture and the mouth feeling of a wine. So all of those things are, like, you can push boundaries. So for me, I definitely want to take it places. I want to go back to Bordeaux and showcase that to Bordeaux, to that very, like, classic structure, rigid type of places where they're like, I went back last year to Saint-Emilion, And they were like, oh, we're bringing novelty to the wine tasting. And I'm like, oh, that's very curious. Please, I want to see, I want to experience that. And actually, they were doing exactly the same thing as they were doing 20 years ago when I started my career. So I'm like, there is no novelty. You're just using a word to just make it feel novel, but no. And on this, I think like, yeah, we need to push, like we need to connect with creativity. Creativity is quite important. I'd like to bring my tasting to some retreats, mindfulness retreat as well, and wellness retreats, to showcase that, sure, I understand wine is alcohol, but when you appreciate it and you're mindful of the way you're consuming, you can create like so much beautiful moments, or you can be inspired by the drink itself, and you don't have to go to the point that you're tipsy or wasted.
No.
Like you can just appreciate a simple glass or two, and don't go down the road of like just having this habit of getting another one, getting another one, getting another one. And then you're like, oh, I went too far. I want to like bring Vinesthesia to people's house without me being there. So maybe I was like envisioning doing some collaboration with some wineries and bring like some like board games and things like this, where people get to have fun with their friends, and they just need to buy another bottle of wine to experience again the same thing and just play again. They have all the tools necessary for it. And there's things that they're accessible straight away from your kitchen.
Exactly.
Like play with some herbs or like dehydrated fruit or things like this. And this is everyday like ingredients that we have accessible. It's not like I'm creating something that is completely out there. I just like get inspired by what I had in front of me.
Yeah. Again, great sensory practice, using what you have in your kitchen to train your nose. And like my mentor at Noble says, listen to your nose every day. That's the best way to develop your ability to re-enjoy wine, because you can pinpoint, what you perceive, and it makes you feel different sensations. So that's great. So I don't know how much time we've been talking, but it's been a great conversation.
Now we are in
Thank
42 minutes. No, thank you. It's been awesome. I'm so happy. I really enjoy connecting and speaking more about wine.
Yeah. Well, I just want to mention, an experiment I went through. I was at École d'Hôtellerie de Lausanne last month, and one of the Professor Lostis, took us through an interesting experiment that makes me think about it, because you talk about art gallery. So he showed us some paintings, projected on the wall, and asking us about the question about the painting, if we had seen it before, if we liked it, to describe it. And then he presented a glass of wine in a black glass, so we didn't see the color. And we just had to taste the wine and say how much we liked it and describe it if we wanted. Unknown to us, and being a sensory scientist I've been called, they were like replicated wines that were presented with different paintings. And it was amazing once they unveiled everything to realize that a same wine presented with different paintings, one that was very colorful and cheerful, and one was kind of dark and sad, makes you enjoy the wine differently. So I love this concept. And just, for people to realize how the context affect our perceptions. And if you really want to learn about wine, focusing on the wine, just being mindful and closing your eyes is important, and then you can play. That's really, just wanted to share that, because it might give you more ideas on how to use art in your workshops.
No, it is definitely so, like, it's perfect. That's one thing is very important to me. Like, also what that professor did is creating novelty.
Yeah.
Looking at wine from a different perspective. You're looking first at the piece of art, what it make you feel, what kind of emotion does it make you connect with. And then you're setting a tone right away on your emotional level. And so the wine, you go on the body constitution. We are 80% based on water. Wine, 80% based of water as well.
Yeah.
So when we look at these elements and our energy and the vibration that goes and connect between the two, like we are going to make the wine, if we have the worst day ever and we angry and we frustrated, the wine will be bitter and sour. If we had the best news, we are like in love and joyful, the wine will showcase as it is exactly, like it will offer you everything on a silver tray.
Yeah.
And this is just connecting with your emotional feelings. Like it's something that is, I'm like, I want to know more about it. I want to go and dive into this rabbit hole by the time, because I'm like, if you get to set the emotions of people on high, you can just go higher from there.
Yes. And especially, these times, the mood in the wine industry globally is not very high. Consumption is down. We are blaming the new generations for not enjoying as much wine as their parents or grandparents. That might not be the issue, but your approach to wine tasting might definitely appeal to people wanted to do things differently. And, we're talking about mindfulness and art gallery, and it's all about creating those experiences. So maybe, one of my last questions would be for the people who are listening to us right now, who want to try something a bit different in their tasting rooms or at their tasting events. What would be one actionable step, a practical step that you could suggest so that they could help their guests get closer to maybe a Vinestasia experiment or experience?
I will say, first of all, be you. Be human, like connect to this sense. Instead of offering a charcuterie board and a cheese board, which clearly doesn't reflect any senses into the wine, maybe you should have different fruits and different herbs where those things are right now how the wine tastes like they construct the wine, make them feel wine and make them like go through like this kind of journey where they be like, okay, now I get to understand, I get to see it, and I connect the dots together. Get to re-empower people. Don't be like, here is the wine, so what do you think? What do you test? Do you like it? Like this is, even for me, being in the wine industry for more than 20 years, sometimes I'm like, well, yeah, I can tell you what I feel about it, but like me compared to the rest of does it mean something? And also they are like trying to connect that with that novelty. I had a customer who recently said to me, oh, I went on to Adelaide trip and I went to do some wine tasting, and I went to this winery and they made us do a wine tasting in the bus in the middle of the vineyard. And I was so cool. I had the best experience, and I bought some wine and I went back home and I tasted the wine, and well, it was not that good actually. And I'm like, why? Because first of all, the winery created novelty, something you didn't expect. You've never been having a wine tasting through this kind of format. But it is also in people's hands to create that novelty, to understand what wine is and what it makes you feel and how you can replicate that for yourself, rather than just sitting in front of a TV with a glass of wine expecting to feel joy and the best thing in the world. Like, you have to also recreate this element for you to really like connect with the wine and be like, oh wow, that's the best thing that I ever tasted ever. Why is it the best thing you taste ever? Why it make you feel that way? It comes from you at the first place as well,
It's really about listening to customers. And as a researcher, I always say, listen to the customers, don't talk that much, listen, because you can learn so much about the language that people are utilizing. Their memories are personal. Of course, you might not be able to use that for communication, but the way they describe wine, those words, it will give you an idea on how to create new experiences and how to connect with them. And as consumers, we connect with messages that resonate with us. If they clearly they use the words that resonate with us, we will certainly pay more attention to that website or that newsletter that we receive in our inbox. Yeah. So you mentioned Adelaide Hills. So you're not in the side of this planet with me. So I would love to come to one of your workshops, but it might not be for some time. But where can people find you, Ama, if they want to connect with you?
Well, they can find me on my social media with ama.vinestasia or directly through my website, vinestasia.com.au, and reach out. Come to me, drop me a message, connect, and come up with a question. I'm more than happy to connect with people, to chat about wine and sit down with a glass of wine. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is what is missing right now. But thank you so much. Thank you so much to have shared your journey and your passion for wine and for people and for human connections. I really enjoy our conversations. And it was really a pleasure to have you on the show, Ama.
Thank you very much. It was indeed a great pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to the next time.
Yay! Cheers.
Cheers.
And that's it for today's episode of We Taste Wine Differently. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe or follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about how I can help you and your team implement a sensory-driven tasting experience, join the priority list of the new program I'm currently working on. It's called Wine Tasting Reimagined. Design sensory-focused wine experiences that convert. The link is link.innovinum.com/priority list. You will also find the link to join in the show notes. À bientôt!